help people recognize, reframe, and reset.
Do you want to tell that story? I'll let you tell that story. Hence the On Your Mind podcast. Welcome back to On Your Mind. I am so excited for today's episode where we'll dive into mental fitness as a key pillar of brain health. With me today, I have a special guest and friend, Dr. Julie Fratantoni. We met at the Center for Brain Health. She has a PhD in cognitive neuroscience, and we're very aligned in that we both love to help people be proactive about their brain health. Dr. Julie is a regular on Good Morning Texas. She has an amazing newsletter called Better Brain that has almost 100,000 subscribers, and she brings a lot of expertise, but also relationality and accessibility to today's conversation. So, Julie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's dive into this idea of mental fitness, or I think as you would prefer the term brain fitness. What does it really mean, and why do people sometimes over-focus on physical fitness and then miss out on taking care of their brains?
The way that I think about brain fitness is two components. I think about the hardware and the software. So the hardware being the physiological aspects. So getting proper nutrients, sleeping, so you're clearing out the toxins, exercising to increase blood flow. And then I think about the software as more of your mindset, your thinking skills, your outlook, and your thought patterns as well. And so you need both to be healthy. And having strong brain fitness to me means that you are able to bounce back from setbacks. You can stay emotionally balanced. It's about being both strong and flexible. I think a lot of times why people tend to focus more on physical fitness as opposed to more brain fitness is because it's tangible, it's concrete. You can see it. You can see the change more easily, or you can see when it's not in shape rather. Whereas with the brain, it's harder to see that. And when you do make improvements, say you become more resilient or you become better at regulating your emotions, or you have more creative ideas, you become better at problem solving. You can't see that the same way that you can see a number change on the scale or maybe more muscle definition in your body. So I think, what gets measured gets managed. What you're able to really see is helpful. And so if it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, that makes such sense, especially in our, I would say, almost image-obsessed culture, right? Like we focus on what's on the outside. But speaking of what gets measured, gets managed, I know your work at Center for Brain Health looked at how you can actually measure brain health and make it quantifiable. Tell me about some of the populations you worked with, I think veterans, executives, and how you strove to make this idea of brain health more tangible so people could track their progress.
Yeah. If you think about, each year you're supposed to go to the doctor and get your annual physical, right? But for your body. But we don't have anything equivalent to that for the brain. So this was pioneered by Dr. Sandy Chapman, the chief founder and director of the center, and they came up with, created a brain health physical assessment. And so this was 10 plus years ago, probably even longer than that. And when I had started, and then now it's evolved into what's called the Brain Health Index. But it's this idea of getting a holistic snapshot of your brain, not for the purpose of putting you in a box or a category, the way that maybe more traditional neuropsychological testing has done, where you're compared to a bunch of other people and you're put on a chart and it says normal or not normal. And really all those things those tests were designed to detect deficits. And so the idea with the Brain Health Physical or Brain Health Index is to detect potential opportunity to give you a picture of what your brain looks like today, and then things that you can actually do to change it, because we know that we can change our brains based on what we do every day. So the populations at the center that I got to work with were incredible. Lots of corporate executives. We did a lot with veterans, athletes, students, but largely with the Brain Health Project was about bringing that to everyone. How do we scale that so that everyone can, check in on their brain health once a year, if not every 6 months. So we were delivering that virtually through an online platform through the Brain Health Project research study.
That's amazing. It's just so cool to think that we could add something like this to a regular wellness check, just like our hopefully yearly physical when we go to the doctor. What were some of your biggest insights? I know you spent 5 years at UTD Center for Brain Health. So any big insights from those projects or those populations that you worked with?
Yeah, I would say from the Brain Health Project, this is an ongoing study. It's a 10-year longitudinal study, and it was for adults ages 18 all the way up to 100. So we got to see a really wide range of people, and it was global as well. So people all over the world, probably mainly in the US, but definitely in all 50 states, and seeking more diversity along the way. But the biggest takeaway from that I learned was that you can truly change and maintain, or rather improve and maintain your brain health at any age. It doesn't matter how old or young you are, or if you're male or female. We didn't see gender differences either. So giving people the tools like training and coaching, when people are given those resources, they are able to make changes and also maintain them to improve brain function. And when we're talking about brain function, this is everything from clarity to emotional balance to then social connectedness. So really a holistic picture, not just looking at much more beyond just things like memory.
That's awesome. Well, it seems like you're hinting at this idea of neuroplasticity, which I definitely want to dive into because I think a lot of us feel like, okay, who I am today is pretty much fixed. Like an old dog can't learn new tricks or, whatever people would say. But what you're sharing is that our brains can change and we can maintain or grow our brain health as we age. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll dive into all things neuroplasticity. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube page at Dorsey Standish for all episodes of On Your Mind. And follow me on social media at Dorsey Standish. Welcome back to On Your Mind. Dr. Julie, I would love for you to share a little bit more about neuroplasticity. I know that actually seeing your patients as a speech pathologist, seeing their brain's ability to change and recover from stroke gave you a lot of hope and actually helped you get more fully into this field of brain health. Can you share a little bit about your story, that transition, and why you're so passionate about proactive brain health change?
Yeah, so getting to see patients that had a stroke or a traumatic brain injury and then working with them to recover language, speech, cognitive function, daily life, executive functions was so fascinating to me, and also just made me realize how little we know about the brain. And so I really wanted to more deeply understand not just, how to help it when things go wrong, but how does it even work in the first place, right? So that was why I pursued a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. That's what got me there. And then by good fortune and God's grace, I ended up at the Center for Brain Health, where they were all about this proactive approach. So it was the first time, I had come out of this model of everything is disease, injury, to really, how do you keep a healthy brain healthy? How do you actually enhance or improve a healthy brain? And that there's all sorts of things that we can be doing in our daily lives to improve our brain health. And that was very novel at the time. That was long before things like the Huberman Lab podcast and, having access to that information. And so I just remember being so that I absolutely just fell in love with this idea of high performance, and that there are small changes I can make in my daily life that can drastically improve things like my focus and attention and memory and just ability to solve problems.
Yeah, and you're speaking to, I know, a shared passion that you described yourself earlier as a health and wellness nerd. So I'm like, me too. Not always, but recently, yes. And this kind of drive to optimize performance. And you're speaking to this shift we're seeing towards preventative medicine, proactive brain health. And I heard you just say little things I can do every day, not to recover necessarily from something negative, but to show up as your best self and keep strengthening your brain over time. Tell me a day in the life of a neuroscientist. What are some of the things that you do every day to support neuroplasticity?
Sure. Well, it starts the night before with good sleep. So having, somewhat of a wind down routine, trying to unplug from screens or just do something relaxing before bed is huge to help get into the parasympathetic nervous system and feel ready for sleep, getting good quality sleep. My friends know that I am a go to bed early person, leave the party early person. And I have no shame about it because I know that I just function so much better. I'm also so sensitive to lack of sleep. So it's really important for me. I know that I just don't function the same. Prioritizing 7 to 8.5 hours of sleep for me is crucial. Having my sleep environment all set up, having the temperature right, blackout shades, like I've got my noise machine. It's a whole thing. And then in the morning, really setting up my brain for success. So that looks like charging my phone in another room and trying not to look at it for the first 30 minutes to hour that I'm awake, using that time instead to take a walk outside, do some breathing, prayer, meditation, just have a slow start to the morning before I jolt my brain into the stress of the day or whatever else is going on. And really, it's such a precious time when you get to determine what your thoughts are going to look like for that day, as opposed to letting your inbox tell you what you're going to think about. So really try to protect that time. I think that's really important. And then throughout the rest of the day, I mean, getting in movement, drinking water, connecting socially with people, having fun is another really important one that I think maybe gets left out of some of the health and wellness routine things. But yeah, it's just lots of little things, and none of this was overnight. This was all really gradual. You just kind of add more and more and find what works for you.
I love that you share that it was very gradual, because that's my experience as well. It was tiny little habit changes. Like, for example, I remember because our environment dictates so much of what we do. I was like, I'm not going to keep like ready-made dessert in my house. I'm going to have brownie mix. And if I want to make myself a little thing of brownie, like it just took more effort. I could still have dessert, right? But it was like that little shift. I had dessert fewer times per week. I was feeling better. And that seems so small, but if it's part of a bigger movement, then we're informing not just, what we do, but our identity with these little habits that you're talking about. And can you speak a little bit to, your personal commitment to brain health? I know you love the field as a cognitive neuroscientist, but I also know that you have a personal connection to really proactive brain health as well.
Absolutely. So my mom, in the last couple of years, was just recently diagnosed officially with Alzheimer's, and it runs in my family. Her mother, my grandmother, had that as well. And so just seeing firsthand the devastation of that, and also knowing that prevention is the best strategy we have at this point. Right now, there are some things, definitely lifestyle things that you can do that can be helpful to slow it. But I think this analogy is really helpful. It's like once you have that diagnosis or that starts, it's like the car is rolling down the hill, and you might be able to slow it down, but it's going to continue going downhill. Whereas, and also knowing that the disease begins for Alzheimer's or dementia, it begins 20 to 30 years before you see the onset of symptoms. So prevention, aging starts, it starts the second that we're born, but I like to tell people that aging starts in your 20s, right? Like it's beginning, or in terms of if your prefrontal cortex, frontal lobe isn't finished being fully developed until your late 20s. And then from there, you just start to see decline, right? So unless you're proactive and do something about it. So I think just this message that we have to be thinking about it earlier, that if you wait until you see problems, it's just that much harder, that much more work. So not to scare people, but I think just to know just to emphasize how important it is to start early, and that I would want a big part of my platform and mission is to give people tools and easy things they can do so that they can avoid that type of fate, because it really is so devastating.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. It must be really hard for you and your family. I love, however, that it's informed your mission to educate people, because, it's easy to think, sleep with my phone in the other room, eat less dessert. What difference does it really make? And what you're saying is that 20 to 30 years down the line, it could seriously impact your brain health. So I appreciate you sharing that. Julie, I want to take one more short break. And then when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of brain fitness and how we can reclaim our attention. You mentioned keeping our phone in another room, right? With so many tech changes and other shifts in our world, I want to hear more about what you do to keep your brain sharp. To learn more about today's guest, Dr. Julie Fratantoni, check out her website, drjuliefratantoni.com. You can also join me in following her on Instagram at Dr. Julie Fratantoni, or subscribing to her Better Brain newsletter, which is one of the highlights of my week on Substack. Welcome back. Let's hear a little bit more about what's on Julie's mind with relation to this idea of mental fitness. When I think about brain fitness, I think about cognition, memory, and focus. But you talk a lot in your work about our hidden mental energy leaks or attention drain. So tell me a little bit more about how modern distractions are hijacking our focus, how much that might be costing us literally, and then what we can do to reclaim some of that mental muscle of focus.
Sure. So data from a study done last year, 2024, showed that on average, people are spending 5 hours a day on their phone. And this is across generations. This is from Gen Z all the way to baby boomers. And so if you do the math, 5 hours a day is 35 hours a week. That's nearly a full-time job. If you think about 35 hours a week, that adds up. If you add all that up, that's about 2.5 months a year. If you think about 2.5 months a year at the average American salary, that's almost $14,000. So in terms of time, or in terms of money, and then in terms of time, think of if you just had an extra 2.5 months, what could you do? I mean, spend more time with your family, learn a new hobby, launch the business you've been dreaming of, right? It's like time and money, I think, helps to, when you look at the bottom line, it's like what our attention is costing us. And so these chronic distractions are, constant digital distraction is just building a distracted brain. And so we know because of neuroplasticity, the behaviors that you repeat are what shape and change your brain. So we're really building distracted brains that are having a really hard time focusing. And so that leads to a whole bunch of implications because to focus is what you need to reach your goals, and also to just even be present with the people that you care about is another big one that I hear from people a lot. So yeah, I think that it's a huge problem right now because your attention is your gateway into your mind. It's the way that you're going to remember, encode, learn, experience the world. And if you aren't intentional about directing your attention, it will be directed for you. So I'm really passionate about helping people regain control of that so that you can choose what you're focusing on when. And it doesn't need to be all the time, but for the things that really matter, you want to be able to hone that muscle.
Yeah, gosh, 2.5 months of the year, man, as a working mom, I'm like what that could go towards. And the thing is, it's not 5 hours straight, right? I know a lot of us pick up our phones over 100 times a day. So it's that constant interruption. You're sharing that we're almost wiring ourselves for distraction with these constant interruptions, which then has implications even too on our executive function for emotion regulation, our ability to reach our goals, right? Just our cognition in general. So it sounds like you're saying one of the biggest things we can do for our mental fitness is reclaim our attention and be more structured in the way that we engage with our technology so we're not losing our attention span over time. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more? I love getting your Better Brain newsletter, and I know you share some tips. One of my favorites recently was the things ChatGPT is doing to your brain. I was like, dang it. And then you'll talk about what you just shared, like how much money our attention is costing us, things like that. And I know you also have a focus challenge as well as some ways that especially high-performing women can work with you one-on-one to come up with sustainable ways to live a brain-healthy lifestyle. Can you share a little bit more about how you work with people and how they can get started today?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, Better Brain, the newsletter. Thank you for saying that. It is a great way to just get quick little actionable tips each week. And then regards to helping train focus, I mean, one thing I know is that people don't need more information. We've got information overload. And so, but what people do need is better habits, and habits are actually really hard to form. And so I created what I call an activation. So it's kind of a mix. It's a hybrid of these micro learning videos. The idea is I was doing them in cohorts. So you have community, other people. So you've got more motivation and accountability to help drive action, to actually learn something and then go immediately do it and apply it. That's how we form habits, is just through repetition. So that is the focus activation. And that's something that you can do individually, or you could do as a team, an organization. And then working one-on-one with people through the Brainwell method. That is, again, just I see so many people, but especially high-performing women I have a heart for, who are doing a lot and doing a great job at it, actually. But it's coming at the cost of, feeling exhausted, being just overworked and high stress, and it's just not sustainable long-term for brain health. So I'm really passionate about working with them to just create an ideal schedule, adding in micro habits so that they can do those things, still do a lot, but do it with more ease, enjoy life, because really the point at the end of the day is not just to do more. Like, I don't want to give you focus tips just so that you can do more. There's a great article, I don't know if it was I think it's a book now, actually, like the top 5 regrets of the dying. Mm-hmm. And no one ever regrets. No one's ever like, I wish I accomplished more or made more money. It's like, I wish I spent more time with people that I loved, or I just enjoyed things more. And so my goal with helping people to have a healthier brain is so that you can do the things you care about. You can pursue your mission, your passion, your dreams, and you can be there with the people you love, and you can enjoy your life along the way. That's really the underlying goal. So through all the different avenues and resources that I provide, that is what I'm hoping to achieve and help people do.
100%. Wow. Thank you so much, Julie. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and my heart is warm from what you just said. We're so aligned in our work. And thank you so much for being a guest and sharing a little bit more about this idea of mental fitness, and hopefully inspiring some of our listeners to start with some of these micro habits, and definitely go check out your work for some support doing that. Thanks.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about how to book Dorsey Standish for a speaking engagement or company training, you can learn more at dorseystandish.com.